Is it
I've got better places to be.
Is it Gabrielle or Gabriel?
It doesn't. I don't know. However
You don't know your own name.
No, like people say it like differently. They're like Gabrielle or Gabrielle.
Yeah,
like,
but it doesn't matter how other people
Yeah,
say
what
it.
do you prefer?
Oh no, because like I say it with like the full like Italian, like Gabrielle. You know, like that. Like,
There you go.
Yeah.
You got it.
I can give it a shot. Do I have to do the hands?
You can. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
okay.
You do it now.
All right. Well, let's just kick off straight away. We got comedian Elena Gabrielle.
Yes, that
Was that
great.
good?
That was perfect. That was perfect.
Yeah, thanks for coming in today and having a chat.
No worries. This is fun. This
Yeah.
was a sick setup. Love
Yeah,
it.
it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Could be better. We've got like,
Yeah.
well, I've got 100 ideas
You do.
of things to do, but
Plans and stuff.
Could be worse
yeah.
also, though.
yeah, could be worse.
Yeah, can't get any worse.
Advertising paid. No,
You should
sweet.
actually be doing it in like a really like shitty place because you're like, no, can't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
any worse.
Yeah. Well, we touch on this a fair bit, but this exact room used to be a meth lab.
Did it really?
Yeah, when we first bought the house.
Man,
So, I mean, we could strip it back to its bones.
yeah,
and,
well,
like,
as a person from Geelong, I feel right at home. So
Perfect.
thank you for
no worries.
that piece of information.
I bought it just for you.
Thanks.
But yeah, I came and checked out your show at Good Chat last night.
Yeah.
It was, I loved it. I
Thank you.
Loved all your
That's-
jokes.
yeah.
It was good. Like, your humour's very me. Like,
Okay.
I don't know if you saw her earrings, but she's got dicks on
Yeah,
her
can you see
ears.
dicks?
Okay. Oh, nice.
They're golden dicks. I didn't. Yeah, golden dicks.
Golden
Yeah.
dicks. Nice. Nothing beats a golden dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good just to hear some good, like, just comedy, like no agenda or anything behind it. Just
sick.
yeah.
Thank you.
And then you blew me away with that rap at the end. Like,
Oh,
what
really?
the fuck? Yeah,
That's so good.
yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
They're like, you're like, oh, I'm gonna finish on a rap, and I'm like, because you hear some like musical comedians,
Yeah,
and you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
here we go,
Yeah.
and then you just bust it out like, like
Someone play a beat? Do you have a beat?
Yeah. So I bought this beat online, which I actually can't put it out yet because when I bought the beat, I didn't buy like the full license.
Okay.
So like someone came in and bought it. So now like I literally like I'm like, damn it. So I've had a couple of people recreate it, but it's just such a good beat.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
It's like a Cardi B style
Yeah.
kind of
Okay.
beat. But I love that part of it because like my last show as well, I'm a singer as well, so I did a song at the end of it, and at the end of the show I'd be like, all right guys, I'm gonna finish on a song, and you see the whole audience go like, oh fuck, like the whole time they're just like, oh my god, no, and then
It went so well at the start.
yeah, and they're like, no, please, like we had a great time, like don't, you know,
Stick
because
to
this
the
whole
joke.
thing of like musical comedy
Yeah.
is like kind of like a bit weird, but like that rap is like it's so much fun. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, for context for the people listening, it's about like small dicks,
Yeah.
but it's like
Nice.
not like, but it's also done in a way that's like, you know, a different kind of thing.
100%.
But, yeah, it's kind of it's
yeah,
fun. So
it
I'm glad
wasn't
you did.
it wasn't like gimmicky or anything. It was like a song you could listen to, and I'm like,
Yeah, and just like put it on in the car, maybe
Yeah.
with your kids in the car, you know,
yeah,
like,
maybe.
just, like,
They've heard a lot worse.
yeah, probably, yeah.
Me brainstorming some jokes in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you got Gold Coast tonight. So
Yeah.
you're hitting all the major cities in Australia?
Yeah, like so. Goldie tonight, and then back to Melbourne tomorrow for 2 nights, and then Sydney Saturday, Perth Sunday, and then I'm back home to Europe. So
Yeah, right. That's
so it's
nice.
nice to come down and do a little bit of shows because I feel like sometimes I feel like so disconnected from Australia because I've been living overseas
Yeah.
for like 7 years. So
Yeah.
whenever I come back, I'm like, is the humour still like? And there is a difference. I do
Yeah.
notice it,
Yeah.
like because I also notice like what Aussies laugh at compared to like
really?
overseas. Like it's really great. Like last there's one joke in the show where it's like so stupid where it was like what would happen if I asked for a pregnancy test and I was like a mummy, like, and then I think, and like that never gets a laugh overseas, like
True.
never, but only in like Perth, Brizzy, or like Geelong
Okay.
I've done it, like people laugh because I think it's fucking
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, I thought it was funny.
But like people I think in Europe just either like they don't get it, like they don't get the thing, or they're just like that's not funny.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
yeah, I picture you packing for Australia and just like dusting off the dick joke book.
Yeah, although sometimes
Yeah.
like I found Australia is getting a little bit more like pulled back, like in
Yeah.
PC, which
I
is
really
really
don't like that at
interesting.
Yeah, I've said that as well because
Yeah.
a lot of my jokes, like I don't push the boundaries or anything, but
Yeah.
I just do the typical like rip on my wife sort of thing, like
Mm.
play on my kids, like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And it's like you do it in some rooms, like particularly like high-end suburbs in Brisbane, and you just like the people are in shock, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate
he doesn't get.
I
he's-
hate that.
Yeah, he's come and watched me twice, and both shows have been like pretty decent. So
I
want him to come to like an open mic
Oh,
room.
yeah. You got to see it like when people bomb.
Yeah.
Like, oh man.
Yeah,
And,
I don't want him to see that. I tell them all the stories on here, and then
That's good.
Yeah,
You see a different side of a person when you
Yeah.
bomb. Like it's pretty horrible.
Just get
Yeah.
panic in your face.
yeah. I reckon only in the last 6 months or so I've become comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's I think a lot of people when they start, like normally when they do their first gig, they kill because it's your first time and
Yeah.
you get your laughs and like whatever because it's your first time. But it's like always like second, third, fourth, fifth times after that where you're like, ugh, like
Yeah.
what am I doing? But then once you get to that point where you're like, oh no, I know this is funny.
Yeah.
It's you. Like, you're the problem.
Yeah.
Like it's not me. Like
Yeah.
then it actually, you just like fall into this confidence. And I think that's what comedy is. It's like the longer you do it, the more confident you are. And like, that's kind of.
Yeah, for sure. Where was your first gig? And was it good?
Yeah, good question. Well, I mean, I've been performing for like 15 years, but like I moved into like purely stand up about 7 years ago when I was overseas because I just never felt like I could start comedy in Australia, weirdly
Right.
enough. Because here in Australia, like I was always doing like cabaret or musical comedy and like
Yep.
that's where they pigeonhole you. They're like, oh no, you do that, you can never do
Right.
this. So I just never felt comfortable to do it, especially as a female comic here as well. And then when my first gig in Berlin, like the first day I moved there, I got on stage and got like a standing ovation, and like
True.
I was like, great. Like, I was like,
get me.
yeah. I was like, damn it. But then, obviously after that, then
Yeah.
followed
Yeah.
the bad gigs
Right.
and some terrible gigs. But,
Okay.
you just like, you roll with it.
How did that play out then? Your first day being there, did you plan that, or you just were walking
No,
past?
I think I just there's another comedian here called Aman. I don't know if you know him. He is a little person. I think I don't know
Okay, yeah,
the type
yeah.
of thing,
Yeah, yeah.
but he's Lebanese Australian, like from Sydney, I think
Right.
originally, and he's always done the Fringe circuit, and he's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And he's a really good friend of mine, and we just came from Edinburgh Fringe, and he's like, yeah, like I'm gonna do a spot here, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll come along, and then asked for a spot, and they put me on, and then I ended up doing a set, but I also sang this parody song of "Fix You" by Coldplay,
Okay.
which is like "Fist You," and I get everyone in the audience to like put their hands up, and it's just really thing, but and it went down really well, so
Yeah,
I was
nice.
like, okay, yeah, super.
So were you writing comedy? So I'm assuming you wanted to do it, but like you said, you felt you couldn't get up here. So
Yeah.
were you like writing at some stage?
Yeah, I mean, I was always, because I was hosting a lot of kind of like burlesque and like these kind of shows in Australia before I moved overseas. And I was always doing sort of musical comedy, but I always wanted to try stand up because
Yep.
I felt like, it's just there's a purist thing to it. It's like I just me and a microphone and that's it.
Yep.
Like no character, no music, no anything. And I wanted to know if I could do that. And once I sort of got that under and I could do that, I was like, okay, now I can bring back in the music. Now I can have more fun
Okay.
with it.
That's cool.
So yeah.
So catching up, you moved specifically to do comedy.
Yeah, I moved.
Okay.
This is my other joke. I'm like, oh yeah, I moved to Germany to make the Germans laugh. Which it's sometimes can be hard. Although so I moved to Berlin. I had friends living there. But I was also doing cabaret stuff on the side as well. But it's the English comedy scene in Berlin is great. It's a great place to hone your skill because there's 3 to 4 English mics every night of the week,
Yeah,
and you
okay.
get audiences, but you get very diverse and culturally different audiences. So you
that's cool.
so it's a really great place to just work out stuff and get around town. So yeah.
Yeah, because that was a big question I had. So do you still do open mics and stuff like that? Because
yeah.
when I look at your calendar on your website and shit,
Yeah.
you've got a show every day. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Pretty much.
I'm like,
yeah.
when do you rest?
When do you rest? And
Yeah.
I don't rest. I think I kind of got used to it. So I think I say in the show, but also I've spoken about it before, and people kind of know. But so back in 2018, I was working with an American comic, and we did 350 shows in 65 countries in 1 year. So I think yeah,
math is
really every
okay,
day.
2 weeks off.
I know. And every day we were traveling. So we would travel, get ready to do the show.
Yeah, where's the travel time if you're doing that many
Yeah, in the
shows?
morning or
Yeah?
whatever. Yeah. So, or sometimes if we were lucky, we'd do 2 shows over 2
Okay.
days in one
Yeah,
place.
yeah.
But yeah, there was a period of 6 weeks where we took a flight every single day for at least 2 or 3 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Did it still remain enjoyable?
I don't know. I think I have PTSD.
Yeah, right.
But-
Anything I do now has got to be better than
Yeah,
that.
exactly. So now I'm oh wow, I'm only doing 100 shows a year. Wow, that is so good.
So much free time.
Yeah, so
Light
much free
work.
time.
Yeah.
I know. I'm oh my God, I need to be working. But you do sort of get conditioned to that pace as
Okay.
well. When
Yeah.
you're and then in 2019 we did 250. But then I remember at the end of 2019 being December, I was man, I need something to happen outside of me to make me stop and
Yeah.
give me a rest. And then COVID
Yeah.
happened. I was Did I manifest?
You caused it. That's what
I
it
know. I
was.
was like, oh my god, this
We
is
finally
crazy.
found the reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what happened. So yeah.
Yeah, because your TikToks and all that,
Yeah.
were they blown up before COVID?
No, during COVID.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was really weird because we 2018, 19, and then even the start of 2020, like we filmed a lot of stuff. But when you're like on tour and you're on the move and you're working on material and whatever, like you just never think it's good enough. So you're like, oh shit, we got to film again. I missed that joke or I missed that or like whatever.
Yeah.
And so we sat on like all this footage and we're basically like, what are we going to do with it? And then during COVID, we're like, well, we're not going to do this stuff again. So we might as well just like put it out.
Yeah, right.
So we put it out and it just started going like super viral and then basically got all these followers and stuff and then started, like, I don't know. And then after COVID,
cool.
I just like lockdown, I was like, I'm going to try it solo and
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, nice. That would have been somewhat relieving though, I guess, thinking that all the touring stopped and all that, but then this has kicked off. Like, were there any like, I guess, did you have like a strategy to go into the TikTok side of things, or did it literally just the algorithm picked you up and?
Yeah, no, I mean, YouTube was the best thing during COVID, and then obviously as well, like with monetization, like I was able to survive just with that during lockdown, which was amazing because like a lot of other comics didn't have that, you know. So I was very lucky in that sense. But yeah, started like with that, and then it sort of flowed on to like Instagram or like other things. TikTok, when it first started using it in 2020, it's like. I kept getting flagged for like, and so all of my early stuff on TikTok is like, I'm taking out the F word and like, like beeping stuff and like whatever. So I don't know, it was a bit, but now it's a bit more lax like on that. But yeah, and then you sort of pick up like audience, but you have to be across everything now. Like you have to be a social media manager and a comedian at the same time. Like,
it's nuts.
It's crazy.
Do you, because obviously you put a lot of your material on there.
Yeah.
Do you worry about like burning that material or anything, or how do you feel about that sort of?
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think I'm like I used to be, but then I was also like I'm not that famous. Like there's a point, and then people come back and they're like, oh, we wanted you to do that, and like or that story or that. But I'm also very aware that I don't want to get caught in that because I've seen that happen with other comics, like Angela Johnson. Like I don't know, she does this whole nail tech bit where she goes and get like. And I remember I went and saw her and it was just such an iconic bit that like when I went and saw her at the Melbourne Comedy Festival, I just sat there the entire time. I was like, come on, do this, do the bit.
Did she do it?
She did.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, and I was like,
left me on a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think the machine's based on?
Yeah. Well, Bert's got to do that at the end of every show. But yeah, that's because I have so many. I put photos up all the time, but I haven't put a video yet, and everyone's always like, "Put a video up," but I'm like, I have 3 jokes. Like,
yeah.
Like,
I think it's like true. Like, and then even then, like now with this, like, because I've just finished sort of doing my Addicted tour, but I will take that to like Canada, US later this year. But then now with this Best Bits tour, it was kind of like putting other bits in there that I just like, because like there's something fun about going back to an old joke and revisiting it. Like I love that.
Yeah, definitely.
But sometimes you feel like you can't. But then I like doing. And I think now as well, like the first couple of years of doing the tour, I had real hardcore fans that would come to the show who would know every bit off by heart.
Yeah, okay.
But now like it's sort of like good because I have people who've they see an ad or they see my like video and they go and check out some more stuff. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to see it. So yeah, I think there's always at least like, sometimes you think like, oh, everyone's come back from last time, but there's probably only like 2 or 3 people that have come back.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was, I think I spoke about this on here because I went and saw Bert Kreischer last time he came to Brisbane.
Yeah, right.
And my wife and I were sitting, we had people either side of us.
Yeah. And
when he started the machine story, they'd never heard it. And I'm like,
Ow.
You're coming to see Bert Kreischer,
Yeah.
who's built this career on this one story and you haven't heard it. And it was nuts for me, but obviously people see there's a comedian.
They
and
must
they're
have
like,
to. There has to be, like, statistically, there has to be people that, like, haven't heard
Yeah,
it.
for sure.
So-
Yeah,
Like-
100%. And I think also, it's like a different kind of thing because when people, this is what is frustrating about, I think there's amongst comics, we sort of like say like, oh yeah, like, you got to write new stuff and do all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but realistically, like there's still a lot of people who have never been to a comedy show
Yeah.
or they might watch something, but they don't actually, like people come up to me, they're like, oh, I like that story with the German guy. And I was like, oh, okay, you don't actually remember the entire story,
Yeah.
but you just remember me going like, Elena, yeah, how many orgasms do you want to have, Elena? Like, and then they do that. And so then they they just remember that little bit.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
don't remember the full story. So
Yeah, because I got in a massive loop at the start because I heard all these top-notch comedians going, you've got to write.
Yeah.
And when I first started, I was just writing and I was almost doing like a new 5 every time. And luckily, there's a guy in the local scene, Nick Carr.
Yeah.
He came up to me after a gig and he's like, your shit's funny. He's like, but just hone in a 5 minutes, get that so it's on fucking autopilot, and then like give and take from there. And I was like, I'm so glad he gave me that, because now I feel it made me comfortable on stage as well, I guess.
Yeah, 100%, because I think like if you know that you've got a good solid like even 10, 15 minute like it's really important to do that. But yeah, I think like there's a lot of people, but having said that, it is great to keep writing and to keep on writing new stuff, because you can get a little bit lazy, like particularly like on a tour now, like nearly a year into the Addicted tour, and it's like I know the show so well, but then I'm kind of like, oh, like, you know, I want to be writing new stuff and like doing that. So but yeah.
And so you have your show that you're touring with.
Yeah.
How much give is there for you to like is it always exactly this? These are the jokes that I'm going to tell, or is there a little bit of?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I mean, depending on like if I'm going to a different country and I have like new stuff about that. So recently, like 2 weeks ago, I was just in India doing shows, and like recently I've been dating an Indian guy, so I had all this content, and I was like, okay, well, and then so like there was a new like
pool of new
material. Exactly, I know, which I didn't want to have to write content, because I really liked him, but he broke up with me, so I was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna write this content.
Here it comes.
So here it comes, you know, and but it was also good because it sort of forced me to kind of write like a whole new 10, 15 minute bit about like in like India and being there and like whatever. And the same thing, like when I go to Canada, I have like Canadian jokes that I will put in. But I do also like to like talk to the audience and stuff as well. And like we used to do with the notes, like I had people write down some stuff, which is what we used to do in this show 2018, 2019 and 2020. And so yeah, like that's another way for me, because like it's like, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, hey, we're up here on stage, we're telling our stories, but like I'm like so fascinated about the audience as well. Like I want to know, like, because there's stories out there, like I want to hear it. So yeah, I'm always trying to keep it like, you know, I like to talk to the audience, and they feel super comfortable with me because they obviously know what I talk about, like maybe too comfortable. Like post show, like the group of guys last night, like after the show, they were just telling me all this and I was just like, I got to take my heels off now, my feet hurt, I'm gonna go.
Places to be.
Yeah, exactly, like 100%.
Yeah, I could imagine. They were getting pretty loose before I left, so I could only imagine.
Oh, yeah. One of the guys actually lived in Berlin for a little bit, and he was just telling me all these stories. And I was like, okay. It used to be like he apparently like hosted some show there, and I was like, oh, okay, like yeah. So anyway,
right.
Around him.
I like those people in a crowd though. Like, I'd much rather someone be trying to fuck with me or something than someone sitting there stone face, and I'm just like,
yeah,
this is not going to
say that now though. But do you think that's just from like where you are at? Like, do you think?
Probably. Yeah. Because I think we've touched on that as well. Probably up until the last 6 months, I'll just be, I'm up here to tell my jokes. Yeah. Nobody look at me. Nobody talk to me. Because I had you mentioned a lot of people's first times are normally their best. I don't think I had a good gig until probably 3 or 4 in, maybe.
Right, yeah. But I mean, it does also depend. Like, I mean, like in Berlin, we have a lot of like these like open mics, and they're really friendly audiences. So if the host says like, this is her first time, like this is her first time ever doing jokes, be nice, the audience will be nice, you know? But like maybe here it's a bit different. It's like the first time, be like, yeah, right, fuck, I'm making laugh. You know, like,
you're going to work for this.
Yeah, exactly. You know?
No, it's pretty similar here. A lot of the MCs will be like, this is an open mic night. There's new people. There's people trying new stuff. If you want to heckle me. But don't talk to them. So that's pretty good. But a lot of the time,
people heckle.
Yeah.
I know. It's like that was a weird thing just to get used to, because it's like it only really happens in like English speaking countries. Like, and I mean, it happened to me like I think it was like 2020, and I had to go do some stuff in Edinburgh, and I was doing a show, and there was literally just like a bunch, like it was a very intimate show, but like Scottish people, like they banter, they go back and forth, and I'm so used to doing shows in like Europe and Germany and stuff where they don't talk back because they have manners, and, but I mean I like the heckle, but I was just there and I'm like, oh shit, people are talking to me, like I was like, you know, and even last night I was like, oh shit, I'm back in Australia. Like people are gonna like, oh wow, you know, it's like this brain adjustment that you kind of got to make.
That's nuts that you're saying like the comedy scene in Berlin's so good. Like I never would have even thought of it. Like
people don't. I mean, the whole English comedy scene in Europe is really kicking off now, but it's really still like underground because, I mean, obviously in Ireland and like England and stuff like that, and Scotland, like it's obviously different because English speaking, whatever. But in Europe, it's like now it's even becoming a hub where a lot of American comics are coming over, running our show that's not quite tight yet. They'll run it for a month and then head back to the States and then do like a massive tour. So
yeah, sweet. That'd be cool.
Yeah, and it's like, and then there's a lot of like the comedy scene, the English comics around Europe is just crazy because it's easy to tour. You fly an hour, 2 hours, you're in a different country, different cities, like whatever.
Yep.
And yeah, you can try out new material and you get audiences generally, and but it's, I mean, but then there's also a bubble, like you can't get above a certain point because you're an English speaker in a country that doesn't speak the language. So it is very still underground. Like you're not going to get Netflix, you're not going to get TV like productions like coming after you because so
if it makes you feel any better, I'm not going to get Netflix in
Britain. I mean, they don't really run it out of Australia either. It's really Amazon, and the same, like I just heard like in India it's the same thing, like they won't give out any Netflix specials. It's really just kind of run out of America now. So
have you recorded any specials or anything like that?
I did record my first one like 2 years ago, which was my dirty special. But I sort of look back on it and I just wasn't really happy with it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because I wrote that show in lockdown.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a chance to really I really started like really working on it like first day of the tour on that, and then I sort of recorded it. I recorded it a couple of times and I just really wasn't happy. So I sold it like a little bit for but now I just kind of like, I don't know. I'm not really.
It just exists there.
It just exists on like an unlisted link on YouTube and sort of stuff. But this one, the Addicted show, like I've had so much more fun with it and I really love it. And so I'll record that. I want to record it in the US, so I'm just waiting for my visa to come through and hopefully can get over there and do it over there. So
yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
Because you'd technically be working then, I guess. Is that why? You'd have to wait for a specific visa to do it?
Yeah. Like you can't do it. I've had 2 working visas there before, but it was like through a different like kind of visa. But it's just like, it's a long process and expensive and all this. And that's why like 50% of my analytics are American. They're like, come to America, you gotta come, come to Miami, come here. And I'm like, you don't know how hard it is. Like, it's, and they're like, yeah, but you're Australian. I'm like, doesn't matter. Like, so I'm still waiting on that. So I'm hoping to get there at least later this year or early next year. So
is there I'm the stupid one of the group. You said you've been to 65 continents? What is it?
Yeah, 65 countries. So 60, I think I've performed in like 67 countries now.
So have you been to every continent?
Yeah, except Antarctica.
Oh, there's the goal.
I know, right? I was like, go down there and like do a show for the Eskimo. Like, no, we can't call them Eskimos anymore. I think they're like different.
Ice people.
I was like, oh yeah, I think I always forget that. But yeah, I think Africa, Asia. I haven't done South America, so South or Central America, but that's on the plan. After, if I do US, I'll go down. Because I had friends do shows in like Guatemala. A good friend of mine is a comic in Buenos Aires, and I'll go down and do some stuff. We won't probably get a lot of audience because English.
It's all Spanish.
Yeah. But you'd be surprised. Mexico City, I've had people reach out. They're like, I'm a fan. I live in Mexico, and you're like,
cool. Yeah, it's nuts to look at the analytics of this as well, and I'm like, who the fuck's listening in like, I don't know, Argentina or something? I'm like, so weird.
But I love that. Like, I mean, there's something to be said for particularly comedy after COVID. I think it's really kicked off, and like this globalization of content and stuff, that you can really find a niche and find your people
for sure.
Halfway around the world.
Yeah, that's what I'd love to sort of build this into, and then obviously set little tours off that.
Yeah,
hopefully they come and watch. But at the moment,
I mean, if you bring some alcohol and bring that bar, you'll be sweet.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah,
good effort. Good. But are all your bits basically based off true events? I was wondering that last night. Like.
Sadly, yes.
Really?
So the final story in the Addicted show, I actually had to ask for, like, I didn't have to ask for permission. Obviously, like, I can say it, but he's still a really good friend of mine. So for context, like, I don't know if people go like think, but I was with a guy and he had like a seizure.
Okay, that was one of the bits I was going to ask about.
Yeah. He had a seizure, like, when I like just finished him off. And he's like having a seizure in the back of a car in a very conservative country, and that's like, and it's weird because like whenever I talk about that story, I'm like, what? why did I even do it anyway? It's just like, but it happened. So I did ask for his permission because, it's like he's not that I changed his name obviously for that, but all of my stories are real. Sometimes they can be like, morph of like two people in one just for comedy, just to like punch it up. So like, most of them are all true.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What about the hernia one? Was that true?
Oh yeah, that was true. Yeah, I know, right? So popping in the hernia. He was. And then I think after he said that, he's like, "Are you going to put this in your show?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, this is too good. I was like, "This is great content." Like, how
for context again, basically there was a naked dude. Yeah. And she had to like pop his hernia back in.
He was like, he had a big one, and he's like, and I was like, what is that? Because I didn't know. Obviously, like my dad has one, but I was like, I didn't know that young fit guys have it. And then because he had like a 6-pack and then this like hernia, and I was like, what, like that? And he's like, just do you want to push it in? And I was like, okay. And I was like, this is a button that activates a dick, like like beep, like
it's like pumps.
Yeah, exactly. I was like beep. That was So they're all true, like my stories. But I think living in Berlin, like it's just it's not just like, dating in Melbourne or Brisbane or Sydney, like you are just with so many different cultures and nationalities, and like it's really this like weird melting pot. So it's just,
I don't know if I asked this already, but I definitely had it in my head. How many languages can you speak?
Oh, English, questionably. But I speak. So when I was with my French boyfriend, I started learning French during lockdown because I had nothing else to do. So my French is like okay, like basic conversation, and Italian the same thing. So, and then I started learning Hindi because I was dating this Indian guy because I like learning languages. I love it, and also when you're dating someone, you want to kind of like get a bit more of their culture. So, but Hindi's a bit easier because you can just like put English words in everywhere. So it's like great. So you're like, I got this, it's fine. So
like when you were learning French, did you find it easier, or do you find it easy to learn languages like going to these places and like forcing yourself to speak the language?
Yeah, I think like French has actually been really helpful for me because I do like, there's probably not really any, unless I learn like, I don't know, Chinese or like Mandarin or something. But for me, like French is really great because I do a lot of shows in French speaking countries like Luxembourg, Brussels, Belgium, France, and then also like Montreal. So like I actually find like French people, they're not really good with their English. So you have to so it's actually been great. Like I've been forced to sort of like make myself known and how to like do stuff like, set up a theatre in French and all that sort of stuff. So
but you still do your show in English then?
Yeah. Okay. Eventually I'd love to be able to do like a set in French. That's kind of like a goal, I think. But it's also, I feel like doing I have a few friends. I have a lot of friends that do languages in different, like doing comedy in different languages. And I'm always just so blown away because like your level of language has to be like so native to be able to do that. So
to get like all the cadence right. And
like even in German, like a lot of my German friends don't like doing comedy in German because of it's just like the language doesn't really lend itself. It's not really malleable like English is. And even in terms of like just the way that a sentence is like kind of set up, it's like very different as well. So it's fascinating. And like a lot of my friends will translate their jokes into another language, but then it just doesn't work. So
I imagine like Russian would be kind of similar to
like even Slavic, I think, languages and things like that. But I mean, having said that, like there's a huge scene in like Belgrade and like Serbia, and then through like Croatia and stuff as well. So it's really interesting.
Because I've heard Tom Segura did one of his specials in Spanish as well, and he said he had to mix up a lot of his jokes so they made sense in Spanish.
I think it's also context, like because you don't want to have to explain a joke before you make the joke.
For sure.
So
it's nuts because like I'm addicted to that dude.
Yeah.
And I listen to all his podcasts and stuff, and he's just typical American dude. Yeah. And then like you hear him speak Spanish, and it's like, holy fuck, that's a Spanish person. Like,
but it's also a different personality. Like, and so I started during lockdown I had nothing to do, so I started like kind of translating some of my jokes into Italian.
Okay.
But it was so fun because I was like, because you're like, it's a different persona, really. Like, and the same with my friends, with my ex, like when he would speak in French, he would be like a different person, but when he was in English, it was like a different personality. And which they say that when you can flip between languages. But then I started, so like wrote a little bit in Italian, and I was like, and I was doing this whole thing, and I was like, and it was like the best thing ever, because I was just like, oh, this is so much fun, like, you know, like kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very different. But I think eventually like it's kind of like a mini goal to be able to do some jokes in French or Italian or like whatever. So
that's how much fun I had pronouncing your
name. I know. And I keep doing this, and all my Italian friends and family are like, that's not right. I'm like, I don't care.
We don't do this.
Yeah. They're like, that means this and like this, and I'm like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. So yeah, just
so I found another crazy thing in my research.
Yeah.
You're probably the most like talented and skilled person we've had on yet.
Okay.
Did you? Okay, so you did at some stage. Do you still hold the Guinness World Record for burlesque?
Yeah.
Like longest burlesque?
Yeah. So I know. So we this is why, like, you know, I can't sit still, like, you know, like going on a world tour for like 350 shows is normal. So when I was doing a lot of stuff with burlesque back probably about 10 years ago and stuff now, I just had this idea like with I was like, why don't we just do like the longest continuous burlesque performance, like whatever. So we did, we set it up, and we hired a hall for like 24 hours in Melbourne, or like over 24 hours. And it was fucking great, because there was always like, there was kind of like two stages, one a little bit, but it was in like this old Masonic hall. Like it was like this weird, and there was a picture of like Queen Elizabeth behind us the whole time. It was and then like the kind of music would like loop out, and then one other performance, I can't even remember off the top of my head. I think we had about 90 performers. They flew in from Brisbane, from Perth, like from everywhere, and we produced it all and didn't sleep for like 40 hours. And then we wanted to have commentary, because we thought it would be quite boring just having that. So we got like silent disco headsets, and then we had comics. So we had like Danny McGinley, if you know Danny. I fucking love that man. And he came in, and he'd just be sitting there with like the headsets on, like with his microphone, and being like, and look at it, that's what you call a left tit tassel. And he was just like, because he's so good at improv, and he was just like back and forth.
Did he do that the whole 24 hours?
No,
okay,
we did. We had like a show. We had like a show like from I think at 8 p.m. till midnight, where you know people could kind of come and watch.
I was going to say that'd be just as impressive, because how many times could you be like,
exactly,
spinning again?
Yeah, exactly. But there was so much difference. But and like, you know, it was a crazy time.
That's what I think. So for like a world record like that, where you have 90 performers or a bunch of different people doing things, the official Guinness people, is it the same person that has to sit there for the whole 24 hours?
Yeah, no, I think like that was the thing. So so Guinness, what I found out actually from John Oliver, like I watched, he had a whole thing on the Guinness World Record actually thing, and it's like, it's pretty not legit, like kind of stuff.
Okay.
But if you have to pay to have someone there,
right,
to then make it a spectacle and like get the thing. But this was like over 10 years ago, so we didn't know how to like record the entire thing on one full stream, because it wasn't allowed to be any like cuts in it. So I think we had to film it on some shitty like I don't know, I don't even know if it was like 1 megapixel like camera.
Okay, yeah, right.
But
we got some footage.
And I don't know who had to sit through that entire thing. Like they probably just gave it to us because they're like, we can't be fucked. But yeah, it was
we'll
like,
wait for this to get challenged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there's not like I don't think anyone is stupid enough to do it. And I mean, you could just put a world record in for anything, to be fair. But yeah, so it was kind of fun.
Stupid question that pops into my head. Eating, drinking, toilet breaks during that?
Oh,
does it have to be continuous, or
no? So it was continuous in terms of like there was always someone on stage doing an act. So it wasn't just me. Like there was many like other people. But I ended up having to fill in a lot between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. Because everyone was like, "Oh, I can't come," and I'm like, "You motherfucker." So I think in the end, it just got weird. Like weird at like 4 o'clock in the morning.
I can imagine.
But it was great. It was definitely a weird experience. But super fun.
Was this obviously open to the public for people to watch, or like tickets?
People could come in and like just like check it out. So.
And were there people there at 4 a.m?
It was. But I thought there would be like way more creepy people. But it was also in this place of Melbourne where I think just down the road there was a strip club. So I mean, you're probably going to go there then.
Nice.
No, we're closing now. Go over there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've heard there's some weird burlesque performance going over there, so they like go over. So yeah, it was fun times.
Another cool thing I saw was you got to open for Iliza I can never pronounce her last name.
Schlesinger. Yes, I did. I got that opportunity in 2021. I just it's this weird thing where I think maybe it works differently here, but in Australia, because they probably work through agents and stuff. But I just reached out to her on Instagram. I was like, hey, like, can I open for you because she was coming to Berlin. And she just got back. She's like, yeah, get in touch with my PA, like, great. And so then, spoke to her, like, management and stuff. And I couldn't do the Berlin one, so I flew down to Zurich and, opened for her in Zurich, which was, like, amazing. So, I got to meet her, got to hang out backstage.
That's
and,
pretty cool.
just really cool, like, really, because, you know, you never know, like, when you meet people that are, like, kind of idols and you're like, this is, like, weird. But she was, like, so, like, straight shot. And I was like, thank you so much for this opportunity. Like, I felt like I was just, like, this little, I was like, oh, my God, like, and she's like, I don't care. She's like, if you're shit, like, it makes me look better. And if you're great, it makes the show better. So I don't care. And I was like, okay. Pressure's on, off. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a massive thing with social media that I'm trying to take advantage of. Like, the amount of people you can just randomly reach out to. Like, I've had the most random people knock me back for the podcast, but also like you to say, let's fucking do it. Like, I sent that random DM at like 3 o'clock in the gym one morning. Like,
oh right, I was going to say, wait, why 3 o'clock?
Well, it was like 3 a.m. I went to gym before work, and then I think you put your Australian tour up, and I was like, oh fuck, DM, and then you were like, sweet, let's do it. I'm like,
I mean, it's so funny because people say, they like to be like, I messaged you, maybe I shouldn't say this on the podcast, but like people say like, they're like, oh yeah, I slid into your DMs, and I was like, oh, I didn't see it, but you do see it. Like, you know, I mean, obviously if you've probably got like millions of people, like you're not going to go through, because there's like the restricted folder, but then there's like the other folder. The other folder you don't really go through, but like the other one that's like normally you will see like, you know, most messages and stuff. So so if anyone thinks that like someone's ignoring you, they are.
Saying that, you said like it's been surprising how many people, like people are just people essentially at the end of the day, and like being able to reach out to them and they will, like, if you don't ask them, no one.
But I think that's an Aussie thing as well, because it's always like, oh no, like I don't want to like, you know, reach out, like, but I think like touring with an American for 3 years was just like, oh yeah, he was always like, be more American, and I was like, okay. Like stop being Australian, be more American, and I was like, okay, be more American, like, kind of stuff. So you have to ask, otherwise you don't get these opportunities.
Because it's there's been a couple of people come in or that I've reached out to, and a couple of like my comedian mates are like, why don't you ask to open for them? And I'm like, what if they say no? And then the podcast is awkward. Like,
why would you do it in the middle of the recording?
No, because obviously like a lot of these people are coming to Brisbane in 6 months or something. So I don't want to be like, oh, by the way, can I open? And they're like, no. And also we're not coming to do the podcast.
You're like, oh. But I think it's good. I mean, it's good because you just have to ask the question, because you never know. You know, like you're always just going to be putting stuff out. So
it's taken me a lot to be so out there, but finally getting somewhere.
Got to embrace that American positive.
Be more American.
Be more American. I wish.
More American.
Normally we kick off we have been kicking off every episode with a can't get any worse story. Did you think of anything? Again, no pressure.
I did, because I was but how do I have to say it in a certain way? Like,
no, just
whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
Well, I think because like recently I was like thinking about this, like the recent kind of month has been pretty shit, but it's kind of like really depressing, so I'm not gonna, but then my other story's like not that fun either, but it's like a bit more funny now in retrospect. So can't get any worse. So I was actually supposed to get married in 2019, this was like my first show, which was all about, and I was supposed to get married in Vegas.
Nice.
I know that's the first red flag. And so we'd just gone from San Diego. We were flying in to San Diego, and we had an ongoing flight to Vegas, and the flight was cancelled. And I was like, you know, with this guy, things weren't great, but I was like, you know, like I was like, I'm like, Elena, you should see it. This is a sign. But I was like, fuck, we've already paid for it, so we got to fucking do it. Right? So we hired this car. We've like drove
cost,
That's something I learned from my father. He's like, you know, you pay for it, you got to fucking do it. And it's like, you know, this is how it
drummed
comes
into
out.
you.
Exactly, conditioned me as a kid, and so we drove like 5 hours. Hired this car, went to Vegas, like and it wasn't like a big like Elvis wedding or anything like that. It was literally go and sign the papers and like whatever. And then 2 hours before that, he came to me. He's like, "Yeah, I can't do this."
Holy shit!
He's like, "I'm 80% sure I want to marry you." And I was like, "Oh, 80%, okay."
Still pretty high.
Still, I know. That's what I was
It's in the top 50%.
Part of me was like, can we negotiate this? You know, because like, you know, it's like, what's the 20%? Can we work on that? Like, whatever. And I was like super devastated. I was like, oh my God.
I could imagine.
You know, like, so I ran out of the hotel room, and I was like running down like the main strip of Vegas and like bawling my eyes out. And I was like, oh my God. but like no one, like this is what it's like in Vegas. Like no one blinked an eye. Like
Yeah.
no
They
one.
must see so much like
That's what I was thinking.
yeah.
I was like, this must be like a normal occurrence,
Yeah.
like for Vegas.
I remember my father, like, sorry to interrupt your story.
No,
but
go.
My father-in-law went to Vegas with his wife for their honeymoon.
Yeah.
And he said they had like, I don't know the appropriate word, but prostitutes approaching him for sex while his wife was like beside him.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck?
There is
Like,
no rules in Vegas,
yeah.
right? Like, but then also part of me was like, oh my God, like I can't even, like people get married in Vegas on a whim to someone they don't even know. And I'm like, I can't even do that. Like I was just like, I'm such a failure. What do I do? So I was like, Britney Spears got married, like, but hers lasted 55 hours, So I was like, but I couldn't get there. So, and then I like ran and I didn't know what to do because I was like by myself. I was only with him. And then I was like, I just go and find somewhere you can just like cry and call your mum, because that's what you want in the moment. And so I was like, Elena, just find the most peaceful place you can possibly find. Just go find the most peaceful. Like all this stuff. So then I ran into Caesar's Palace Casino, right? I don't know why. Like I was just like somewhere peaceful. I gotta go somewhere peaceful,
Nice.
right? I saw this Starbucks and I was like, so I sat in the Starbucks and I'm like bawling my eyes out. But of course I was like, the Aussie in me was like, oh no, I better buy a coffee. I can't just sit down without buying a coffee because I was like, that's rude. Anyway, just had my whole marriage breakdown, but sure. And so I went up and I like asked for a coffee like through these tears. And then I was like, oh yeah, I want decaf. And then they're like, yeah. And then they gave it to me, but they gave me like caffeinated, but the coffee was wrong. And I was like, how do I go back and say, excuse me? Like, I was like, oh. So anyway, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just have caffeine. We'll get through it. So I called my mum. My mom was like, just leave him, motherfucker. Like, she was like, like, fucking, she's real bogan. She's like, yeah, leave that motherfucker, like, get out. And like, whatever. She's like, come home, just come home. I was like, okay, mum, like, I'm in Vegas. Like, what do I do? So anyway, I eventually was like, you know what? I'm finally going to leave him. Great. So I went back to the hotel room. And like my ex was like very good at kind of manipulating the situation. Right. And then he was like, no, like I'll do therapy, like I'll work on myself and like all this sort of stuff. And I was like, which I stupidly believed. Because, when you're with someone that you love, you like, great. And
plus you'd already had the room for the next few days.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, no, we had a red-eye flight to Puerto Rico.
Right. Okay.
So we were, I don't know, this is like a bit of a spoiler if people are listening to this, but he was also a comic and we toured together. So anyway, and so then we went to Puerto Rico and we had a show to do that night, and then he disappeared all day, and then I was like, okay, and I was like devastated, and we did a show. Anyway, it turns out that day he went off with someone else like that day.
Shit.
And I was like, okay, great. So yeah, can't get any worse. And then I was like, fuck this, and I like left and I flew to LA and had I did a shitload of edibles, and I was thinking like, what do I do with my life? So yeah, that was kind of like the can't get any worse situation.
Yeah, for sure.
But then I ended up still touring for another year with him. So
with him,
yeah,
right.
Yeah, not
Is that
great.
awkward?
Yeah, really awkward because we were still then we kind of got back together, and then and then we broke up, and then the show was all about dating. So then I had to go because I was.
So I got this new material.
Yeah. So we broke up. We broke up during lockdown, like 2020, and then we like had a couple of months apart, like summer, and but of course, like with the show, it was all about dating. So it's like go and make some new stories and then come back. So I was worried about money because I was like, I didn't know what was going to happen. So I went back and toured with him, but it was like, do not ever go back on tour with an ex when you're talking about dating and all the people you've just fucked in during the summer.
For sure, It
was like the worst thing ever. So and then after that I was like, oh no. And so we ended up like going our separate ways.
Yeah.
But,
it just seems like you're asking to like one up each other.
For sure.
Yeah.
Just like I just imagine the banter backstage, like, hey, I've written this new bit. What do you reckon? You're a piece of shit.
Just silence, and then you get on stage and be like, I had the best sex of my life last night, the best dick. It was so big. It was the biggest dick I've ever had. There was a little bit of that, I will say, but yeah. So I think like that was like after that point of like just the wedding and everything, I was like, just like can't get any worse than that situation.
That's nuts. Did you have to tour together? Like, what was the whole tour promoted as you two or something? Is that why you were
like
stuck
we were like both working on the business, so we were self-producing the show,
right?
And,
Okay,
so it was pretty entrenched into everything. So yeah,
you've paid for this, you're doing it.
yeah, exactly. I was like, we're going for it, we're gonna do it, right? So, but yeah, I mean, like you live and you learn, right?
Yeah, for sure.
A great opportunity to travel the world and do that. So
you got a story out of it. At least.
Yeah, but it was like weird as well because the show was being like talking about dating, and we sort of had to present ourselves as being single on stage, like. like,
Right.
so we had this. So no one knew that we were actually together. So
Okay.
yeah. So some people cottoned on and they're like, wait a minute, you guys are touring together for like the last 3 years together.
Yeah.
What's going on
Something's
here?
going on
But
here.
most people didn't. They were just
Yeah.
like, yeah, whatever. Because like, you know, you believe a comedian when they get on stage.
Exactly.
Right? So-
It's like we all believe the Wiggles aren't together.
yeah. Oh, are they?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Two of them were at some stage, weren't
yeah.
they? Yeah. I think they got
Wait,
divorced,
but-
though.
I love this, like, because like I'm so far out of like kids
Yeah,
music
yeah.
and stuff, but my nephew's now 6, so
Okay,
I'm like
yeah.
fully into Bluey now. I'm like,
Oh,
I like,
yeah.
Fucking,
I will like watch it when I'm home.
me too.
Like, like,
I just put it on for the dog before I came in here.
Feel your family.
I got it onto my friend. I got it onto my friends in Germany, but like the German versions. Like it's because it's like in German, and
Yeah.
so I was like, and I watched it in German. I was like, oh no, I like the Australian version, but I was like, not as fun.
Yeah.
But,
No, we're openly obsessed with Bluey here.
Ah, so
Oh, yeah,
good,
we love it too.
best,
Yeah,
so
it's-
good.
It's crazy, like how big it kicked off in America.
Yeah, it's nuts. It was like it's good as well because it's based on Brisbane.
Yeah.
So you'll be watching it and you'll be like, oh my god, the Story Bridge, or there's South Bank, and it's like,
yeah.
because like my kids will be like, we'll go into South Bank or something, and they'll
Yeah.
be like, there's the ice cream truck Bluey got ice cream from, and then I have
Now
to
we
buy
need
them
to
ice
get
cream.
ice
Yeah.
Yeah, oh,
Have
that's
to buy them ice
shit.
cream,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
So
I mean,
that-
it is good to see it because, like, sometimes when they like, I saw the one the other day where they go to the chemist and it's like a chemist
Yeah.
warehouse.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you're just like,
Yeah.
aw. But you're like, does this translate to like Americans? You know, and they talk about tradies and like all this stuff.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh, like,
they got like Hammer Barn, which is
seen-
Bunnings and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I see a bunch of posts of like people like, I don't understand these jokes, and then there's like the comments is just everyone just explaining these jokes to people. I'm like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. No, it's definitely very Aussie
Yeah.
humor, but
No,
love
it's
it.
good. Best Australian show that's come out in ages, I reckon,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think so.
You think so?
Yeah.
So where are you off to after Australia? Did you say sorry?
Where am
it
I off
Asia?
to? Yeah, Asia. So I had to postpone because I had a death in the family a couple of weeks ago. So I had to postpone a couple of shows. So I've got Hong Kong next weekend. Yeah, so not this Saturday, the Saturday after. And then the following Saturday I'm in Singapore.
Yep.
And then I'll head back to Europe. I've got a bit of time, but I'm going to do some new work in progress shows when I get back to Berlin.
Yeah,
And
nice.
Hamburg and Frankfurt. And I'm going to Bucharest in Romania again because I haven't been there yet on my solo tour. So.
Nice.
And then I'm going to go to Canada for 2 weeks to do some shows. So
Beautiful.
yeah.
When you travel around and go to all these places, is there much downtime to do the traveling part of it? It's like all work, focus on
Yeah,
work.
it's pretty much work. I mean, financially, it makes more sense
Yeah.
to do that. But also, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like financially, but then also like you want to be in the flow of the show. And I think like when you're in that, if I sort of take a couple of days off and, you know, have a bit of time, it like I feel like I get out of that mindset.
Yeah.
But I think I've also like I've been to these places so many times, like that, like I kind of feel comfortable when I go there. But also, for me, seeing like a church or a Brit, like I'm like, nah. Like for me, it's more about the audience and talking to people afterwards. Yeah, like and getting that kind of cultural experience, and particularly like through dating and asking people, you know, what the dating life is like, and you just find out so much more about a country and a culture that way. I find.
Yeah,
But,
yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. You like, do you think it takes any of the luster off? So some people are travel people, and they're like that's what they do for enjoyment, and you do get to do so much travel for work.
Yeah.
That if you had the opportunity to travel for like just leisure, that it wouldn't be as fun, as enjoyable. You'd be like, oh,
I think like I mean yes and no. I think I don't ever just travel by myself on a holiday. Like I can't do it. Like I have to be with friends or I have to be like in that kind of situation. But I do find that like my holidays now are like very much like like on the beach or like by a pool for like a week because I just need that sort of like downtime because most of my life is so busy. But yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, I can't, but but it's great now that I have so many friends in so many different places that like sometimes, like I did a show in Istanbul recently and like my friend I was like, hey, if you can get cheap flights from Berlin, like pop on down, like you don't have to cover the hotel because it's like I'm covering it. And and she just like flew down for a couple of days and we just had like a couple of days like to explore like Istanbul. Cool. And so, yeah, I'm lucky in that sense, like a lot of friends everywhere and they're happy to come and meet me and, you know, hang out and like whatever. So
For sure. Yeah, because I've never done much traveling, but like a big thing for my wife and I, we want to go to America, but it's like to be on a plane for that long, like I'd want to spend like a month there. Like there's no way I could spend like at the end of the week, spend that same amount of time like flying back. But would you get, I guess you're used to.
Yeah, you get used to it. Like you kind of just get, I don't know. Like, I mean, I live mostly in like airports and hotels and like planes. But I don't really like to do like the big long things. So I arranged the tour. So even now, like I think mid-June I left Berlin and then I flew, it was like 2 hours. Oh, no, like an hour and a half to Bulgaria. And I did some shows in Sofia. And then from there to Istanbul was like another hour and a half. So like that. And then I went from there to Mumbai, which is like 4.5 hours, 5 hours. And then from there I went on to like Bangkok. And like, so they're only like, they're not really any longer than 5 hours, like the long flights. So
that's a cool way to do it.
And I mean, obviously any way to get to America, but I normally would prefer to, like, I mean, from Berlin, it's like 8 or 9 hours to get to New York. So it's just everything is so much closer over there.
We really are like the other end of the world.
Yeah. Oh, that flight from like here to LA is brutal.
Yeah. Where'd you come from like to get here? Did you come straight from Berlin?
No. So I did some shows in Chiang Mai in Thailand, and then I flew to Taiwan. So I did a show in Taipei, which is like, I did some shows there like back in 2018. It was the best fucking, like they were like Taiwan and like Taipei audiences are like so much fun.
True.
So, and it's just they've got this brand new comedy club there run by this like American guy, and it's like really fucking dope, like really great room. And then like when my grandmother passed away, I had to like be back for the funeral. So I just flew from Taiwan to Melbourne, which is like it was still like about a good like 13, 14 hours like to go through Hong Kong and then back. So, but not as far as taking the full 24-hour flight, you know.
Yeah.
So
when this is all being planned out, right? So you have 6 months, a year, whatever it is, and you have all these shows that you want to do. Yeah. Is it like I'm going to map it out, or is it we'll slot things in and like I have opening here, we can just slot it in? And
I think most of it's like pretty like planned out. But this year I was trying something different, to do something that was like more like base myself in Berlin during the week so that I could still do mics and whatever, and then fly out on the weekends and do shows, which in my mind was like, oh yeah, that'll be great, but actually ended up being like even more tiring and also not as great financially because you're sort of always having to find flights back to Berlin. So next year it'll be like a really compact like 3-month Europe tour, which is like 6 shows a night like in different cities, but with that like you just take a train or whatever to another city. And then you can, do that. So, so it's pretty much like planned out like well in advance. At least I try to.
Nice. Then down to the beautiful Gold Coast tonight.
Yeah, I'm actually excited. The last few shows I've done the Goldie like many years ago, like they're always just so much fun. But I say that and then like you project something and then they're completely different.
Yeah.
So
no, Gold Coast comedy is good at the moment.
Yeah.
I love, like I was saying before, I love going down to the Gold Coast at the moment. Like,
it's like, and they're also crying out for it because I think a lot of people just don't bother going there. Like, so, which is like really weird because I'm always like, yeah, man, Goldie's great. Same with Geelong. Like a lot of people don't really go down there and do stuff, but like people are thirsty for it.
Yeah.
So,
it's like a lot of the local guys are going like on little country tours at the moment.
Yeah.
And they're like filling these little pubs of just people begging them basically to come out there and
it's
tell
so
some
grateful
jokes.
that someone's there.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's also fun, like, because we did like a whole thing from like Cairns then down to like Townsville and Mackay. Like I studied in Mackay for a year, so like I always wanted to kind of go back and see what it was like, and hasn't changed. In 20 years it hasn't.
I remember.
Yeah, it was like nothing changes in Mackay. But then you go down like even Townsville, Rocky, like people are just like they want something, and it's like, and they're also super fun as well. Like Townsville audiences are great too.
Yeah, because I mapped out like a mini tour thing that I'd be like keen to go on, I guess. But then you start like, I could only imagine it must cost you a fortune to tour because like I was looking into like fuel, accommodation, like all the things on top of that, and it's like holy shit. Like at the moment I'd have to pretty much pay to put this tour on, but at the moment I'm also willing to do that to get out there.
And it's also like kind of building your brand and sort of stuff. So sometimes if you have shows that don't really like work out financially, like you kind of like, okay, well that's like, that's still promotion. That's still like this.
Yeah,
and,
investment. Still have my name here.
I mean, if I showed you my budgeting like tourist spreadsheet, you'd be like, what the fuck? Like I'm like super German in that way. I've maybe been living in Germany for too long, but like I'm very scheduled and very like all of this, but you have to be like, otherwise you can't just be like, I'm just going to go here, here. And you have to be now, particularly like with the cost of like travel and stuff that's just gone up crazy everywhere, you really have to be like really careful about like how you plan out the tour in terms of like travel and that kind of stuff as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but it's great. You should do it.
Yeah, I'm keen. I'm keen. It's just
pull the trigger.
Hey,
just pull the trigger.
Yeah, maybe there's there's a lot going on at the moment, and
I mean,
budget
you've got
restraints.
kids, and you've got kids and a family, so it's a bit different. I'm a single woman, just being like, I'm just gonna fly to Hong Kong and tell dick jokes. Yeah, great.
That would be good because that's another thing I'd love to do is like, obviously bring them along as well and make it like a fun road trip, I guess.
Let's go see Dave.
100%.
Amazing.
Oh, sweet. Well, we better let you go down to your gig. Have you got anything you want to plug before you go? You basically just touring here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, just, I don't know. Chuck me a follow.
Yeah, for sure. There we go.
What's the handle?
At Elena Gabrielle on Instagram. Threads. Is anyone using Threads now? Like this.
I haven't made one yet. I've held back. No.
I wish I didn't now.
Really?
Like, because you can't delete it without deleting your Instagram. So
true.
Yeah.
Right.
You're in.
And then I think actually in the EU they're not allowing it now because there's like all these like regulations on like I don't know how much data that like they want to pull from it. So I don't know. Yeah, I got it and I was like, damn it. So yeah. Anyway, Elena Gabrielle, and then on TikTok I think I'm real Elena Gabrielle real. I don't know. And someone stole my name. And then same on YouTube, just like YouTube Elena Gabrielle.
Okay.
So.
How do you type this on the keyboard?
You have to go Elena Gabriella, mamma mia, che cazzo fai? And then that's it. So,
no, perfect. Well, appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll see you next time you're in Australia.
Yeah, for sure.
See you later.
Bye.